Hello and welcome to the Lobby, GameSpot's weekly hangout every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific right here on videogames.com. Aaron Sampson, how you doing?
How are you doing?
I'm doing real good. Sometimes I say videogames.com because I remember that we own videogames.com. Also nuke.com for some reason. We used to have that years ago. Nuke.com.
And GameSpot, right?
We own KanyeSpot.com. That redirects to a very specific part of GameSpot.com,
Yeah.
I believe. How you doing, Mike Mahardy?
Good, how are you?
Great. I'm doing all right. You've been playing a lot of video games for the past couple of weeks, most of which we are talking about on today's show as it happens. We're going to talk about sort of the reaction to Battlefield 1 and Infinite Warfare in a little bit. We're also going to talk about Overwatch and Battleborn. A lot of people, I mean, it's pretty self-apparent to people who actually play these games, but a lot of people have been asking sort of, what's the difference between these two games having not played them? So we'll just do a little bit of a Q&A on that. We're also going to talk about The Witcher 3 Blood and Wine. Jake Decker's going to come in and tell us all about his time playing that. And also, 10 out of 10, Uncharted 4 on GameSpot.com. It is out today on PlayStation 4.
It has all of the charteds.
It has got all of them. We are no longer, the cartographers can put down their pens. We have charted everything. Uncharted is done. You really liked it.
Yeah, it's a really, really great game. I'm pumped to talk about it.
Okay, we'll talk about it later on.
Yeah.
No spoilers as well.
Will
But
do.
first of all, actually, I want to sort of get to a little bit of breaking news that just happened right before we came online. There's an update here on the Disney Interactive blog from one John Blackburn, who is the Senior Vice President and GM of Disney Infinity. To quote him, he says, "By now you may have already heard the news that we have made the difficult decision to discontinue production of Disney Infinity. From the beginning, Disney Infinity was built for you, our fans, and wanted to take a moment to thank you not just for your support over the years, but for creating a community that made Disney Infinity more than just a game. Our goal for Disney Infinity was to bring the best of Disney storytelling to life in homes around the world. And with your support, we accomplished that. We hope that you have as much playing of the game as we had making it." So what's next for Disney Infinity? We have 2 final retail releases coming, including 3 new characters from Alice Through the Looking Glass later this month, and from Finding Dory, the playset. That's the new movie Pixar are releasing in a couple of weeks. Playset launching in June. And as we turn to the next chapter in our story, I want to thank everyone who helped bring Disney Infinity to life, particularly Disney's Glendale-based production and publishing teams, our external development partners, and of course, the incredible Avalanche team for their tireless dedication to this project. But most of all, I want to thank you again for making Disney Infinity a part of our lives and for adding to the Disney legacy by being part of this community. I'm a little shocked. I thought these games were selling well.
I thought they bought Star Wars and we're going to milk it in every possible way.
Right? I mean, I played 3.0. I hadn't played any of the other ones. I played 3.0 and I actually really enjoyed it for what it was. You're a father of children, though, Aaron. You tell me, because for me, I was almost taken aback by how playable. I mean, it wasn't like the most magnificent 3D platform ever made, but there was kind of enough substance there to make it an enjoyable play. But I kind of didn't really figure. I couldn't figure out what age group it was for.
Yeah, I definitely I experiment with games with my kids, and they like sitting in my lap and watching me play Destiny for some reason. And I threw Disney Infinity at them. One of the more recent Star Wars updates, and I gotta say, for at least the 5-year-olds, it was still a little bit too complicated.
Right.
The Ewok Village had some really complex puzzle platforming, and the combat was actually pretty robust with combo attacks and things like that. So it depends. I think maybe a 7-year-old could have really related to Disney Infinity. For kids younger than that, it was still a little bit too challenging. Although I will say they did enjoy ripping the arms off of the Ahsoka Tano statue that I had.
I mean, that's the other part of it as well, is that this whole Toys to Life thing, we've very much gotten the impression, I think, as consumers, that it must be doing really well. I mean, Amiibos we've got a couple of Amiibo addicts here in the office. And then the same with Skylanders as well. They seem to be, whenever I go to a friend's house and they got kids and they got a game console, they tend to either have some Infinity or Skylander stuff. Apparently that wasn't enough for them either.
I mean, ultimately, the business model for any toy seller is to get the parents' wallets through their kid. You gotta get the kid to ask the parent for the toy. And that's when parents usually say yes, right? Because parents aren't gonna, for the most part, go buy this stuff on their own. So to me, that says that they didn't connect with the kids somehow. Because they're the target market.
I guess when you think about what are the big Disney games that have come out in the past couple of years, I don't know if there was a Frozen playlist or playset on this. Maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. I mean, you're talking about Monsters Inc. and Incredibles and stuff like that, which are kind of a couple of years old now, and a couple of years in child's toys is like a lifetime, right?
Yeah.
So maybe the Star Wars, I don't know, it just seems crazy that they're literally tanking this entire project based off of what apparently is low sale. I don't know. He thought Disney were flush at the moment.
Yeah, it was a few years ago, right before Disney Infinity came out, when I sat down to play it at GDC, and I remember thinking, and this was before they even had like Star Wars, so I was thinking, okay, Disney plus like toys, like Skylanders by this point had proven to be really lucrative, and they were only on like their second game, I think.
Yeah, that was originally a Spyro spin-off.
So it was essentially, that was their pitch: take Skylanders, add it to Disney, and then you can sell the models, which like even from a collector's standpoint, that seems like it'd be lucrative, but also like they're well-made toys.
I've bought like 5 or 6 of those model sets in the to my shame, and they're sitting like only because I'm like I'm a fan of Up. And I'm a fan of like Inside Out, so I have, and they were relatively inexpensive actually as well, was the other thing in the sets. So, but yeah, still, like you think Disney fans would buy anything?
That seems like the perfect storm of everything a kid or like a lot of adults would like. That, especially with the collector's mindset, the fact that if you're into games, you can like them, and then if it coalesces with your interest in toys, that's just a perfect combination. I'm very surprised as well that it wasn't going as well as I thought.
Yeah.
I will say that my kids have surprised me. Some of this might, and this is just my speculation, but some of this might be because a lot of kids these days will watch other kids play with toys on YouTube,
right?
Rather than play with toys themselves. Much in the same way how like our generation's baffled when people watch gamers play games on YouTube rather than just, back in my day we played the games ourselves.
Yeah, I had a friend of our family, a friend of the family's son stay over in our place over the weekend for his like 14th birthday, and I was at like. I gave him like Fallout 4 to play some Fallout 4, and he played it for about 30 minutes and went, actually, this is more fun to watch.
Yeah. So
it's just too complicated for him.
There's that weird trend these days where like kids and even young adults get on YouTube and they just sort of cathartically watch other people do it rather than do it themselves.
Yeah.
I wonder if the toy market...
It's like adults and porn.
Yeah.
Disney Infinity has Marvel too. I can't believe that.
Right.
Like I keep forgetting how much they have on like in their court for that.
Now I want to know how Skylanders are doing.
I mean, I know that was the precursor to that whole like subgenre, but I can't imagine they're doing really well if Marvel and Disney and Pixar are not selling these toys and these games.
Weird, very strange. I guess all we can say is sort of our thoughts go out to everyone who worked on production for Disney Infinity. I hope you guys land on your feet, and you made a really great game regardless of what happened to it. Best of luck, and hopefully we'll hear more about this over the next days and weeks as people start to sort of come out and flesh out this story. Interesting note, that just breaking just as we went live, but we got a bunch of other games to talk about. First things first, you got your thumbs?
I got thumbs in both directions.
It's a thumb war, baby.
Got 2 thumbs.
Warm up your thumbs. Got that thumb war.
I know where this is going.
Battlefield 1 has the highest thumbed up trailer in the history of YouTube. In the history of YouTube. Aaron pointed this out a couple of days ago. And also Call of Duty on the opposite side.
Yep, but it's one of the most thumbed down, I think, game trailers.
So this can come from like a variety of places. Also, it's like perfect like clickbait for a video game website's news story. You know what I mean? Like it sounds great. But let's kind of talk about the reaction to both of these games sort of outside of that a little bit. First of all, let's talk about Battlefield 1. We did a sort of a breakdown after that announcement. You went down and saw some awesome gameplay stuff. We've already talked about that. You can check it out on YouTube and GameSpot. But the reaction to that trailer, were you surprised at all, Aaron, about how refreshing or how into it people were, considering it is, it's a war we've not really seen much of?
Yeah, I think World War I hasn't been done all that well, at least in American cinema. And I was doing a lot of research after that came out, and I noticed there are quite a few British movies, which makes sense. And I think it also hasn't been that explored in video games just because of probably the misconception that the weapons would be fairly boring.
Yes.
So yeah, I gotta say that it caught me off guard. I thought maybe they were going to go back to World War II or maybe do Korea or Vietnam. It was surprising in a very good way, just because now I'm excited. Like, it's a campaign about a war that I don't honestly know a lot about.
Right.
And that's exciting. It means that you have an opportunity to not only enjoy yourself from a shooter perspective, but also, learn something or experience something that maybe you only ever saw in black and white history class films, or, to me, that's exciting.
Yeah.
And that is new.
It's weird that you say that, actually, because when I think about playing the original Call of Duty, and like I remember feeling like really upset at the when you like storm the Reichstag and bring up like the Soviet flag and stuff. Like it's quite an effect. Like for me as a young sort of teenage boy, like that was how I learned a lot about World War II. In the same way, like Band of Brothers and like Saving Private Ryan, like taught an entire generation what happened on the Normandy beaches who mightn't have known otherwise. Do you think there's anything to be said about that? That like people have this sort of emotional reaction to something when it has actually happened and existed in a way that they don't when we started going into the world of like sci-fi?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when I was pretty young when the first Call of Duty came out, and I remember my dad, whose dad was in the Pacific Theater during World War II, was actually pretty uncomfortable with me playing World War II games. Yeah, because it hit close to home with him. And now I have a brother who's done 3 tours in Iraq and 2 in Afghanistan. He's completely fine playing like Battlefield 4, Modern Warfare 3, or whatever. And I think it could hit closer to home, and that's why World War I itself, I'm really excited for the multiplayer. I'm actually pretty excited for I've read about, and like I actually took a class on World War I, and it was because I didn't know much about it. And I'm excited. Really? I actually, the more I think about the single player, it's a cool opportunity to kind of shed light on it, and I'm hoping they don't. Video games play a huge part. I'm not saying I don't like war games. I play a lot of war games, play a lot of shooters, but video games in the modern day play a huge part in how we kind of romanticize war still.
Right.
And like with so many people playing games now, and I'm hoping maybe with this game they'll take the opportunity to kind of show how World War I itself was like, no one knew why. This was the war when we realized we need to stop doing this, and like because World War II was very much more black and white, good versus evil. World War I, there were so many different reasons, like sinking of Lusitania. There was the Archduke Ferdinand assassination. There was the fact that Germany had the plan of attack, the Schlieffen plan, whatever they called it, planned out decades in advance before World War I. And I'm interested to see if they can actually use this setting to kind of push a good story, but good story as in like not to make use of all the shit that went down, but maybe kind of shed more light on it, because a lot of people don't know about World War I now. It's overshadowed by World War II in terms of like I said, like how almost romantic it was.
I mean, World War II sort of has culturally its impact. I mean, we just had another Star Wars movie, and that's basically an allegory for World War II. It's fascinating to think that, these are, you're right, like film for years, cinema was what sort of emblazoned the cultural impression of what we, like you think about Vietnam and Apocalypse Now and other movies like that, like, Full Metal Jacket and stuff. And that's how we sort of remember these things. And video games have dotted in and out. And I mean, I sort of always felt uncomfortable playing some of the Call of Duty games set in the Middle East, because I thought that there was a sort of an attempt to create the same black and white sort of idea we had of like other old wars, the way we think about old wars in those sort of reductive terms, in a place where that really doesn't necessarily apply. Did you ever guys feel that way about some of the more modern sort of Call of Duty games, and maybe more particular actually the Medal of Honor game that came out?
Oh, Warfighter.
Yeah.
I remember I was actually playing that while my brother was in Iraq or something.
Yeah.
So that was,
and you've
that
been
was
in the
weird.
Navy as well. So
I was in the Air Force.
Air Force,
briefly,
sorry.
Yeah, and I don't remember specifics about Warfighter. I remember it being definitely kind of doing that though, making it more of a us versus them mentality. From what I played, I don't know.
I've had more issues with some of the way film has portrayed modern war. I think it's been too much like, Rago America, everybody's evil. And it's sort of undercut the complexity of the Middle East. And to bring that back around, the complexity of the Middle East, although that area of the world's always been complex, a lot of the modern complexity comes from the fall of the Ottoman Empire, from World War I. So going back to Battlefield 1, like you have an opportunity to explore sort of the creation of the modern day situations. Like a lot of the borders on the map in the Middle East right now were just drawn by some people. At the end of World War I, they're just like, yep, here's a pen. Yep, that looks good. Let's put a line here. And they group together peoples who had no business being grouped together. I mean, you say Ottoman Empire to most people, they think of something that existed like centuries ago, not less than a century ago. And that's why people are always saying there's like these what if scenarios if the Nazis won World War II. But if you look back, our world today exists so much because of World War I. Europe would be unrecognizable if we were to look at some other timeline where the Austrians took Italy, or the Germans actually pushed into Paris, like they almost very closely did, but screwed it up because someone made a bad decision from a strategic standpoint. But yeah, that's this setting itself. I'm actually, the more I think about it, the more I'm excited for the single player, because
the single player. They said there's going to be more like multiplayer and the sandbox structure, which I'm hoping they actually really go for that, and it's not just a selling point. But I'm also really hoping they can tell the stories, like the Harlem Hellfighters. That'd be a really cool group to look at and see how like it affected them and how they kind of were this undersold story during World War I. I'm excited for that setting for sure.
All right, let's shift perspectives then from the past to the future. Call of Duty Infinite Warfare obviously got the jump on them by about a week or so, I think. The trailer has had some thumbs down. Probably a lot of those have to do with the Call of Duty 4 pack-in deal that they're doing. I mean, that's going to happen, I guess. But do you think maybe people are... Because I was intrigued by Infinite Warfare. I was at least thinking, at least they're trying something new. At least they're not like resting entirely on another, slightly near future. Oh, look, this is the same gun you're using now, but now it has a different magic future scope on it or whatever. And like thrusting it into a new sort of plane. And hopefully, like you were saying, Aaron, actually making good on it in terms of gameplay and not just like having it be a story setting and basically be a normal first-person game. Battlefield 1, when you put the two of them together, now it looks like Battlefield 1 is so much more intriguing. But what do you think about Call of Duty Infinite Warfare? And are you do you think it's a step in the right direction for Activision and Infinity Ward? Or do you think it's not enough? Or are we just being jerks because all we've seen is 2 trailers? And at least they showed gameplay, kind of.
I think it's a game that's become a little bit trapped by its own success. I think they've been not straying too far from their own formula just because... that's what sells, and they probably have been given marching orders to not change it too much. That's why I'm a little bit worried that this one will just be it'll be another planet, sure, but it's just functionally going to be the same thing. Now, I think it's pretty cool that it's got 1 million thumbs down, because to me, if I were making this game, I would go to my bosses and be like, look, this is a mandate from gamers to change. Like we should try some new things. Check out how many people don't like the fact that this appears to be the same game. I think it's a positive thing, and I think if anything, it could free them from having to do the same thing every year. Now, I think you disagreed and said, and it's probably the truth, it'll just depend on sales. If everybody thumbs it down and it sells the same, then sure, they'll just make another future warfare next year. I don't know how, there's nothing beyond infinity, but so they kind of put themselves in a corner there.
Yeah, it's. I think you're right. It's like success is a double-edged sword, as we sort of talked about a bit last week. And how do you really innovate a series which is selling so well, even if it is like dipping a little bit? Like looking ahead to the future even more, you got to say that if Battlefield 1 is what we're talking about now, then the chances are the next Battlefield is probably going to stay around that period of time. You'd imagine like, that's the perfect opportunity for them to roll back into World War II and not instantly be stuck. Like, I wonder, it's sad to be talking about what they're going to do next after these, but I wonder if, I guess it'll all happen on the success of this, whether or not there's enough like gameplay change to make it worthwhile. Mike, what do you think of Infinite Warfare?
Yeah, I'm really hoping, because I think in the way they revealed the game is actually kind of telling. It seems like DICE and EA showed us a lot more of Battlefield 1 than Activision Infinity Ward did. Like in terms of gameplay, or at least I saw more gameplay.
Well, you saw more gameplay. I think their trailer was twice as long as what the public saw.
Right, sure. And I think, I don't know, I'm hoping it's not just like a futuristic skin. I'm hoping they actually make use of it, because I don't know, it'd be cool to, I don't know, this is spitballing. What if you had a multiplayer map that you're warping between different parts that had like different time travel differently? There's different gravity in different areas, because there's zero grav combat according to the trailer, and they're showing it. But how much of that is just going to be what was at the beginning of Ghost, where you're floating and shooting people just like you are in Call of Duty? I want them to actually use the setting to kind of propel what they're doing forward, rather than just make the game and then throw a futuristic paint on it and just say, like what you said, this is what an AK-47 would look like in 50 years or something. Yeah. I don't want that. I want them to actually kind of tell a story, or do cool new things with multiplayer they couldn't do like in Black Ops 3, like because the wall running was just reminded me of Titanfall, and then the shooting reminded me of every other Call of Duty game. I want them to actually take the step that they're purporting to be with this trailer. I'm hoping it's actually futuristic and not just painted to look like it.
The other thing as well is that like you can have a contemporary war game be really good and evocative, like Call of Duty Modern Warfare was, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. You just have to have like a very well written game with like interesting set pieces, and I feel like we've had that in like Black Ops 1, for instance. I thought I had that, and I think the 2 Modern Warfare games did. Personally, I haven't really connected with any of like Advanced Warfare, any of those. They were sort of like fun little diversions, like an action movie is. But like I still remember so much of Call of Duty 4. Maybe it's just a case of we look at these games at this really superficial level, and actually when we get to play them, that's the time for these studios to be able to deliver what they're actually trying to do. And maybe we judge this game too early because we expect it to do so little.
Sure.
But then they've also been doing that for a couple of years.
Although, if anything, they've set themselves up in an environment where they could do amazing things. Again, like Mike said with Gravity, like give us the first multiplayer map set on a spherical asteroid where I throw a grenade and hit myself in the back of the head if I'm not careful, Or like, again, give me a space battleship where the multiplayer combat takes place both inside and outside of the ship.
Right, yeah.
I mean, there's things that, again, going back, there's things that Battlefront did a long time ago that we haven't seen since, and we haven't seen done better and in this level of detail. So, again, if you're just going to have the future AK-47 and a flat map with Earth's gravity.
Space people.
Yeah, like then you
like
really
Doom.
haven't innovated at all.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and find out. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for the two of them. Haven't been excited for Call of Duty in a little while, I feel, and I am actually excited about this one. Battlefield 1, obviously, just the sort of anticipation of what that could be is obviously very tantalizing as well. Mike, what about yourself? What are you sort of looking forward to when you put these two games side by side?
I am looking forward to both of them as well. I think more so Battlefield 1, just mainly because that series hasn't been where I want it to be for a long time.
Right.
So I think every time it comes out or they show it off, I'm hoping it'll get back to what I loved about Battlefield. These these prolonged, more multiplayer matches with more substance, because Call of Duty has become this Twitch gameplay, which I like. It reminds me of not in the same way that Counter-Strike did, but I love Counter-Strike because it was a very specific kind of shooter, and I love Overwatch because it's pulling from a lot of them. But I'm hoping that Battlefield 1 does add more substance to returns. They say they return to their roots. I hope they return to the right parts. And Infinite Warfare I'm curious about, but Battlefield 1 is the one that kind of got me really excited.
Yeah. Aaron, you're a big fan of Battlefield. You cover Battlefield games here at GameSpot all the time. What are you looking forward to out of two of these?
Battlefield 1 takes place at a point in history where a lot of warfare was not figured out. And I think that's an exciting setting. Like I said, they started with airplanes where they were just spotting, and then, some bag of dicks brought a shotgun with them. And then another guy brought a shotgun, then another guy brought a machine gun, and next thing you know, you've got aerial duels. They invented a tank. It drove at 3 miles per hour. So you could just step out of the way if you really wanted to. And they just invented it to take on machine guns.
Right.
They didn't really know how to use it. I think that's exciting. It's exciting to set a game at a point in history where it's not like future AK-47. It's we don't know what an AK-47 is, but let's try making a rifle semi-automatic and see what happens.
Yeah.
So that, to me, is a fun setting and still allows for a lot of the weapon customization that they'll sneak it in that they have in Battlefield already.
All right. Well, in any case, it looks like we're getting to interesting-looking military first-person shooters this year. Let us know, though, what you think. What are you most looking forward to? Call of Duty, Infinite Warfare, or Battlefield 1? Put your thoughts in the comments below. Our good friends in the Twitch chat have all been screaming at me for Call of Duty Disney Infinity Warfare to maybe solve those two problems at the same time. Maybe not. Probably not. Maybe that's what happens.
They're just going to kill off Mike
Activision
Wazowski
just
right
bought
away.
They bought Disney. It's all over.
Yeah,
Infogrames bought Ubisoft and then bought Disney and then bought Activision. They're going to merge all together.
We're done for. It's all syndicated.
Yeah, Rayman in your Call of Duty video game. All right, let's talk about some more first-person games. We've no shortage of first-person video games. First-person military games have been around for donkey's years. This year we got two very colorful first-person games. In fact, one of them's out already. Got 7 out of 10 on GameSpot. Another one's out in a couple of weeks. May 24th, 2 weeks from now, I believe. And I think you're reviewing that one, are you?
Correct, yeah.
All right, so you're reviewing Overwatch. Battleborn's already out.
Yes.
The beta for Overwatch closed earlier today. Battleborn is still alive and kicking. Bunches of people playing it online at the moment. But one of the sort of weird questions we keep getting, even though people have had access to both games now in some sort of form, is what's the fundamental difference between these two games? And I think that was a big problem years ago when we had Battleborn and Battlecry and Bloodborne all coming out at the same time. I think that name got confusing.
Yeah.
And then Overwatch obviously came out and people were like, oh, it's another first-person MOBA. What's going on? So we said we do a short video sort of just explaining what the two games are because they are actually very, very different. Aaron, first of all, you've played a lot of Battleborn over the past couple of weeks. If you were to explain, like in a nutshell, like elevator pitch style, what is Battleborn?
Battleborn is the best way I can describe it is it's a not Borderlands sequel.
Okay.
It's not Borderlands, but it has the same feel of Borderlands, the same sort of status effects and shooting and like weightlessness. You take the shooting formula from Borderlands. You instead of unlocking guns, you're unlocking people who have abilities, and it has an extensive single player campaign as well as the sort of MOBA-esque multiplayer, and you're playing both just to get your characters unlocked.
And are you primarily playing with other people then? Like sort of Borderlands, you could go either way. I played solo most of the time, but most people seem to enjoy pairing up. What's been your experience in terms of Battleborn with that?
You have to play with other people.
Oh yeah.
You can do the campaign by yourself, but it's not recommended. A lot of the challenges you'll find very difficult, particularly if you pick a support class character. And it's just more fun with friends. It's one of those games where I think your friends are the best part of it.
You're right.
The characters themselves, I gotta say, they put a lot of love into the characters of Battleborn. They really they're hilarious. They say really funny stuff while you're fighting with them. They feel like they all have backstories and personality, and they react to the environment differently. And even in multiplayer, they will call things out that surprised me, like, hey, there's that sniper guy again, or like, so you're supposed to run away from the bullets, or like, one of the guys I died real quickly, and he's like, so this is our first match. Like,
right,
they their personalities shine through, and I think that's my favorite part of the game.
Cool. On the other side of it, Mike, a bunch of us have been playing Overwatch in the office at the moment. Sort of taking that as your starting point, that this is a sort of a very team-based, team co-op sort of experience in the vein of a floaty, weightless, not battle. Give me the word. Borderlands game. Thank you. What would you explain Overwatch to somebody who sort of already knows what Battleborn is?
Sure. So Overwatch is more of a class-based multiplayer shooter, competitive. I know like a lot of people thought it might be more of a MOBA when it first came out because there is a incursion mode in Battleborn. Battleborn is very much a MOBA. There are minions, and you're destroying these towers, or you're destroying these robots that are essentially like the towers and whatnot before you get to the fortress. Overwatch is more of I don't know, like it's if you took Team Fortress, which had 9 classes, I think, and just made 21 different classes and made them all crazy and really in-depth characters. It's more it borrows from like shooters styles from different shooter games, right? So you have Diva, who's got this tank she can get into. It's like Titanfall. Then you have Farah, the airborne rocketeer, who's kind of like a Quake character. It's very much like taking the best of different shooter genres and pitting them against each other in this more very fast pace. The objectives are there, but they're almost more to facilitate just the fighting between these really crazy characters.
Right. So Battleborn sort of has more all-encompassing scenarios in terms of like objectives, right? You've got your single player modes presumably have like relatively mediumly complex objectives, and then the multiplayer sort of has a lot of wheels sort of spinning at the same time.
Yeah, the single player also has a story, which is a pretty big difference from Overwatch, which is just purely a multiplayer competitive shooter. So, I mean, probably the biggest difference between the two is just that Battleborn does have a story mode. I can't remember exactly how long it is, but it's pretty meaty. Each mission is can be up to like 30 to 40 minutes, depending on how you play them.
Oh, is that like a standard online game as well in Battleborn? Would that be around that time as well? You're talking like MOBA length almost?
Yeah, they're a little bit longer than I expected, actually. The multiplayer matches, I don't know, it depends what you like. People who like that genre will probably enjoy it. I found that they ran a little bit longer than I wanted, but also there's a lot to do other than just kill other people. There's the whole upgrade tree that you go through every match. A lot of that has to do with you farming minions and preventing minions in certain modes, like I think Incursion they're the things that actually win the match. So it's got some really fun aspects that don't involve you just fighting other people. Like you can bait other people away from the minions so that you get the points. or you can suicide into a pack of enemy minions. Doesn't matter if you die. Your KD doesn't matter. What matters is that you stop the minions. And I like the fact that it's not just purely focused on KD and killing other players. There's actual strategy to it. And in that regard, it's a lot of fun, actually.
So you were saying like lengths of the maps there around the sort of 40-minute mark, and then you also have this in level or in mission leveling system where you were sort of dinging your character there level 4, and then you open up this skill tree again, sort of like a MOBA in terms of either leveling or in terms of acquiring new abilities via a shop or via upgrading yourself because of the levels. On the other side of it, Mike, that stuff doesn't exist in Overwatch, right? And the matches are much shorter.
Right, yeah, the matches, I think the quickest I've done is probably, if you're playing on a good team against a bad team, it can be like 4 minutes, 5 minutes, but the longest I've seen is probably just above 15, if that. Even
usually
that,
around the 10-minute mark, kind of.
Right, because 15 is pretty long. And it's all, you get the attack and defend objectives where you're taking point A and then the defense is kind of falling back to defend point B, and then the attackers win if you do that. Then you're escorting these payloads, which kind of, there are classes kind of. There are the tank characters that function better to absorb damage and kind of push an objective. Offensive characters, defensive characters, support like healers and shielders. But yeah, they're not, within each match, they're static, aside from gaining an ult and kind of using that, which is their most powerful attack. Battleborn, you're actually using that helix system to gain new abilities as you go, and you have the loadout system with the items, which is a very MOBA thing too. It's streamlined in Battleborn, but in Overwatch, it's your character and their abilities.
You got
and their
three
weapon.
abilities, go.
Yeah.
Or maybe some of them have got more, obviously.
Which sounds, it's deceivingly simple. It seems simple, but it becomes complex in how different characters interact with each other, how different characters can buff each other or counter each other if you're on the other team, how different characters can play both offense and defense. It becomes very nuanced the more you play. I don't even know how many hours I've played now with the beta and the early access, but at this point, I'm still playing new characters I have barely touched before, and it's kind of forcing you to realize how all these layers interact, and it's a fun game.
Cool. Well, let's just sort of top level overlook at those two games, Overwatch and Battleborn. Obviously, so much of what you enjoy from a first-person shooter comes from just how it feels and how accustomed you are to that in terms of the sort of first-person games you usually play. Aaron, yourself, which one is sort of feels better for you? Which one are you enjoying the most out of the two?
It's funny, but I'm actually starting to trend towards Overwatch just as a cleaner experience. Battleborn, as much as I love the characters, I've had a couple of rounds where, especially when I was a melee character, it devolved into wading into large groups of people, smashing the attack button with the screen being so full of status effects and just people's bodies and random butts flying by, that the only thing you can tell is if you're in the scrum or out of the scrum.
Right.
And other than that, you're just staring at your meters and mashing the attack button. Whereas Overwatch, in many ways, seems to be just a more cleanly focused title. But again, if you're a single player person and you like the characters and you like the personality of the characters, then I think Battleborn is more your style.
What about yourself, Mike?
I prefer Overwatch at this point, for sure. I'll be playing Battleborn in the weeks leading up to Overwatch's launch, and official launch on 24th. But yeah, Overwatch is just kind of scratching that itch for these characters are easy to learn, really easy to learn. Each one of them, even if you don't once you grasp the controls, you'll be able to figure it out. The UI is pretty good, but I'm still mastering some of my main characters, or trying to. I don't know if mastering is the right word. That's selling myself too high, but yeah, Overwatch is the one I'm thinking it might be one of my go-to games throughout the year.
Right.
Yeah,
I kind of feel the same way. I actually sort of feel a little bit sorry for when Battleborn has come out. I feel like this was a game I wish came out back in January or something, when there wasn't that much to play. Because I enjoyed it more than I thought I would, because I'm probably not the best person to try and sell Battleborn to, because I wasn't a massive fan of Borderlands. For whatever reason, the way that game the shooting works with the numbers popping off and stuff, it's probably a similar reason I never got really that much into the Division either, or Destiny to that effect. So I don't think I'm exactly the person they should be marketing that game towards anyway, but I did actually really enjoy it. It's the incursion mode, that's what it's called, right? In Battleborn, I thought that was a unique that was an enjoyable way of doing that. There was enough happening on screen where it wasn't like the single player stuff where it was super crazy and it almost felt like objectiveless because there was so much going on. Whereas it felt more easy to control than something like Paragon, which I'd played a little bit the week previous, which something about the camera didn't feel right in terms of like trying to do these ranged and AoE attacks. I thought Battleborn did a way better version of that. But yeah, it's kind of a weird little crisis they have where they're coming out alongside something which, although very, very different and obviously doesn't have some of the stuff you're talking about, the single player, some of the core functionality of that game, or at least just in terms of it being a first-person game you play on the internet, it seems like Overwatch and Blizzard are sort of doing their own thing. Is that Randy Pitchford on the phone calling you? Just
that was him
like,
saying,
shut up, O'Dwyer.
Yeah, just tell Danny to stop. Well, we also have Lawbreakers on the horizon too.
Oh yeah, we do. You're right.
Which I was surprised with. I had a good time at PAX East with
Is
it.
Lawbreakers basically another Overwatch?
No, it's more like, well, yeah, okay, so it's closer to Overwatch than it is Battleborn, but it's like Unreal mixed with Quake.
Okay.
So
it's a translocator with a railgun.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
Can't wait for that video. Lawbreakers. What is Lawbreakers? Yeah, we'll do that one next, I guess. Thank you so much, both of you, for coming in and talking about it.
Spoilers, you actually obey the law the entire time you play that game.
It's like Battlefield Hardline. It's just like show the shield.
You drive at the speed limit and you professionally greet other players in the middle of the map.
Hello, sir. Tip of the cap. Yeah, looking forward to that one. Yeah, thank you so much both for coming in, talking about Overwatch and Battleborn. Let us know in the comments if you played either or both, if you got involved in the Overwatch open beta. What did you think of that? And have you been enjoying Battleborn? I mean, Overwatch in there for a couple of weeks now, so it's the perfect time to go and pick that one up and maybe give it a go. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Mr. Sampson, we're done with you now.
Okay.
You may leave.
I'm out.
Thank you so much for coming in, as ever.
Thank you.
Talking about first-person games. We got Jake Decker coming in, our Geralt of Rivia expert here in the GameSpot office, a video game that we love here. Jake, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm pretty good. We have a show full of really good games. We haven't even gotten to Uncharted yet, which both of you have completed, I believe.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Fair play. Okay. Let's jump into Geralt. Mike, have you completed The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt? Have you played any of Blood and Wine at all?
No, not Blood and Wine. I played through Hearts of Stone and
Yes.
beat the Witcher 3 base game.
Yes, and Hearts of Stone was a super good expansion pack, but sort of a fraction of the content in comparison to what's coming out of Blood and Wine, it seems. Jake, how much did you play?
So we played about 3 hours of the expansion, and there's supposedly 20 to 30.
Oh wow! Okay.
I think like if you don't want to do all of the side stuff and all the exploration, then it'll probably take around 20 hours just to do the main quest. But they said, yeah, you can take 30 hours on this thing. I'll probably take more, just because I'm so invested in that world. But yeah, it sounds like a good chunk of content.
Jeez,
Yeah,
CD Projekt have like a problem.
Well,
like,
Jake has a problem. He's beat the game 3 times
What?
at least, and one was on that death march. And I think he's playing it again right now.
You completed Witcher 3 times.
Yeah, because Witcher 3, you got to do it 3 times, right?
That's how sequels work.
That's not how sequels work. Have you played Final Fantasy 15 yet?
You are screwed.
No, I'm gonna avoid that one. I think. Just to,
So I guess, okay, then you very much are an expert of all things Witchering. I guess the first question I'd ask is this new world that they've built. How big is it, and how does it look and feel? Is it very different, or is it just like a reskin, or how did it feel to you? Did it feel substantive?
So I think it's very different. So you know how like Temeria and sort of the Northern Realms are very war torn, and you know lots of people were like taking sides and battling it out. This one is sort of untouched by wars. They've said multiple times. So when you're wandering around, you don't really see like battlefields. You won't see people sort of displaced from their homes. It seems it's got a much lighter air to it. But from what we played, there is dark things brewing in Toussaint. But yeah, as for size, it's about the size of No Man's Land.
Okay.
So it's a good size. Should be plenty to do.
And obviously, Hearts of Stone was sort of a single-player quest within the normal world of The Witcher 3, which did have some side quests as well and bits and bobs. When you get out into this world, obviously there's a main quest, but is it sort of littered with question marks around the place as well for random side quests and encounters and stuff?
Yeah, so we actually had, when Rob and I played on the map, we had all of those already like marked.
Okay.
So when you look at it, yeah, there's, I think in the fact sheet they sent us, there's like 90 new quests.
Oh, right.
So there's plenty of quests. I mean, I don't know how long they'll be. They'll probably vary in length, but it sounds like there's going to be plenty to do. Lots of locations. I think there's 40 locations too, from what I read. Yeah.
Pretty cool. So what else is different in terms of gameplay? I know they've added a bunch of armor and whatnot. Yeah, anything substantive in that respect? Like,
yeah, so I mean the armor's big. I know they're gonna add more Witcher sets. I think the 2 biggest things I took away from it was the new mutagens. I think they said there's around 12 new mutagens, and these aren't just like perks. You know how in the main game you kind of had, you choose perks and then you assign them to a slot, and you can only assign around 12. But these aren't like passive skills. These are very aggressive skills from what I saw. Like they showed us a variation of Ard where Geralt would have like a huge blast radius and enemies around him would freeze.
Oh, right.
And they even told us like, yeah, these are pretty overpowered. Like this is something you're going to do later in the game and you can tear through enemies with these.
Does that stuff pull over into regular Witcher, do you think?
So that's something I'm not entirely sure about. Like I don't know if you have to get the expansion in order to use all these mutagens.
Right.
It's hard to say. They're also revamping the UI too, so this kind of falls in place with the new character screen where you can assign new mutagens. It's all redone, so it looks nice and clean.
I mean, this is the final chapter in the story of Geralt of Rivia. You have to imagine, maybe. I mean, do you actually? One more point. Do you have to complete the first game to have done this, or does it work like Hearts of Stone, where you can sort of like boot in if you don't have a high level character, or how does that work?
Yeah. So if you haven't beaten The Witcher 3, you should beat The Witcher 3 if you haven't beaten The Witcher 3. You can just start a game right at the beginning of it. So similar to what you could do in Hearts of Stone. Yeah, so you can start right into it with Geralt that's already got equipment and he's leveled up to a certain extent. Otherwise, I think you need to be level 35. Whether or not you have to beat the game or not, they were kind of unclear about that, but it sounds like you don't have to, but I'm pretty sure you need to be sort of nearing the end.
And probably for spoiler stuff, you might want to have completed the end. I remember that in Hearts of Stone that there was sort of certain nods to late game stuff, maybe not end stuff, but like late game stuff that they sort of spoiled a little bit.
So yeah, it's similar with this. I mean, I even found something, I won't say exactly what it was, but it was definitely referencing something that took place near the end. I actually found it, and the developer who was there was like, "Oh, I don't actually think you're supposed to find that in this this demo." But yeah,
there you go. You excited for it, Mike?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, after playing Hearts of Stone and getting a little bit of a taste of like a new expansion and what they were trying to do with telling these incidental side stories that didn't really affect the overarching plot, or actually they did. They introduced kind of a big villain, I guess, and I'm not sure if he'll be in Toussaint, but I loved like. Point Lookout in Fallout 3 because it actually gave me a new world to explore, and I'm looking forward to Far Harbor, which actually, now that I think of it, if like the rumored release dates are true for both, are they going to be near each other?
Oh, really? Yeah, because they actually have a release date for this, right?
Yeah, this
right
is
after
May 31st.
you put the video up. They posted it. May 31st. Yeah,
and Far Harbor is not too far off, right?
Let me look it up. Actually.
Because if those are both like simultaneous, that's going to force a pretty tough decision.
That's like a full RPG right there.
A week before, May 19th.
Oh man! All right, yeah. So I'm. What is it? Blood and Wine. I'm really excited for because I love Witcher 3. I played through it. I played through like another half of a playthrough. I don't feel the need to go back to it right now.
Yeah.
Having a new area to explore, and like he had said, the whole idea of like peacetime kind of, and seeing how the war invades this area as opposed to seeing the aftermath is really appealing to me.
I love it. It kind of reminds me of like there was a very sort of British Isles feel to. I mean, Skellige is literally an Irish word and like Scots Gaelic word, and then like the rest of it sort of felt a little bit like England, and you had the sort of the rich people of the south of England living in Novigrad and the poor people from the north living in the south. This kind of feels like the Mediterranean a bit, where they're all a little bit pompous and sort of well-to-do and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, you figure because there's no war there, a lot of them are very focused on, luxury. And, wine is huge in this, so, Geralt gets his own vineyard, apparently.
Really?
Yeah, so they showed us a little bit of that. But yeah, so you complete a mission and you get a key, and you can go there, and apparently you can upgrade it and
make some sick wine.
Like a home-based kind of.
And dye your clothes, too, because
great.
That's what you do when there's no war. You dye clothes.
I hope there's another getting drunk in your house scene, like the great one from The Witcher 3. That's awesome. So I guess, you're a big fan of the series. Final point on this. After playing 3 hours of it, what was your expectation going into it, and how did you sort of feel as a fan of the series once you'd walked out of that room?
So I pretty much felt that CD Projekt Red delivered on almost everything that I was hoping for, at least from what I played. There was a new character who was from the book, which had me really excited because I was kind of curious where he had been in this whole lore, but he shows up.
From which book?
He's from the I think he's second and third.
Okay.
I've only read the first 3 and then the short story, so I'm not entirely sure. My only real concern, though, is the last expansion. We didn't really see Triss, Yennefer, Ciri, Dandelion. And I was like, all right, that's fine. It's kind of a side story. But this one, if we don't see them, I'm going to be pretty bummed because I've spent so much time with those characters, and it's going to be weird not to see Siri or Yen, but it's CD Projekt Red. I have a feeling we'll see them, but
might poke their heads in somewhere. In any case, it'll be the final time we see Geralt of Rivia for a little while. But then I guess we can't be too sad, because then that means they're working on Cyberpunk 2077.
Sweet.
So another game to look forward to. Yeah, wonderful to see. I mean, that was the fantastic surprise of last year, that game was as good as it was. And it's wonderful to have more expansion packs coming out. It is out May 24th. No,
31st.
31st.
It's 31st.
The week after Fallout Far Harbor
And Overwatch.
and Overwatch, which is those are a week after Doom.
And that's a week. May 31st is a week before Mirror's Edge. I think.
Really? And about a week
Or
from
or a
now.
few weeks, maybe. Yeah.
Right. So if you haven't been already, you might want to start saving your shekels, because there's a bunch of big video games coming out.
And beating the games you haven't beaten.
Yes, exactly. I'm beating the game.
Yeah.
I have to do the awful. I played on Xbox One for like 150 odd hours, and now I have for Witcher 3.
Oh, okay.
And like now, I in that time I built a new PC, so like I couldn't bring the save over or anything, which is really annoying. But
So
That's
wait,
one
do you
of-
have to play like 60 hours of The Witcher
I
3
don't know.
before you get to...
I mean, I have a character leveled up for Hearts of Stone, like one I pre-built one, or one
then
that,
you're probably okay. It's
I'll
around the
probably just use that.
same level recommendation, so you should be okay.
good to know. All right, let's stop talking about Witcher, because we'll just keep talking about The Witcher all day. Oh yeah, and another game that I guess came out this month that might be good, I don't know, is Uncharted 4.
Today.
It's
Came
out
out.
today.
Well,
you can buy it right now. Why are you watching this? Go download it. I pre-downloaded it last night.
Yeah.
It had that little ticker saying it'll be unlocked in 15 minutes. Then I had to go play tennis for an hour, which sucked, because I wanted to play Uncharted. Mike Mahardy, you've played a lot of tennis.
tennis is good. It's got. I have some complaints with it, but it's overall it's worth the experience.
Tennis is
It's
now
worth
until
$60.
2017, so let's talk about Uncharted, which is what I meant to say originally. You played a lot of Uncharted. You awarded it a 10 out of 10 on
Yeah.
GameSpot. I've actually lost count of the amount of 10 out of 10s we've given.
12.
12 now. There was a time where it was down to, like, it was only like 7 about a year ago, I feel like.
Yeah.
And then Metal Gear Solid, The Witcher 3, and Journey got them last year. Uncharted 4, the best Uncharted game?
Yeah,
Really?
definitely.
Really?
So it's not
Uncharted 2 was really good.
it's not as groundbreaking as Uncharted 2, but
Okay.
it is better.
Okay.
Because Uncharted 2 came along and blew all our faces off. We're like, what's
Yeah,
happening? And
Video
now,
games can do this, really?
yeah, and now Uncharted 4 is saying, well, really, this is what we can do.
Okay.
It's just not as much of a surprise.
Right.
It's awesome. It's in so many different aspects, and it's not just how the individual quality of it, like the combat, the storytelling, the writing, the animation, just how it looks. It's how they all kind of combine to form something that uses all of its aspects to tell a story that you couldn't really tell the same way in any other medium.
So explain, I guess, sort of the nuts and bolts of that. Like, what are the things in this game which feel, you know, if not groundbreaking, then better than anyone else has done within this genre in Uncharted 4?
Sure. So you watch a cutscene and the animations. First off, the facial animations and animations in general are pretty much there. It's the way that it can express like just distrust, something that you couldn't
Right.
see on a video game character's face most of the time. The way they do that is pretty great, and how the writing flows into that. But also when you're just fighting, there'll be these incidental little things that they do. Like Uncharted has always done this, but there's points where like certain relationships will start to change and the dynamics will change, and like the way they address each other when you just walk by them when you're playing will actually kind of react to that. And you, at first I was like, I think I'm looking too much into this, but then they kind of addressed that later and like, oh, they meant that. And there's so many ways that they use the world itself to tell a story. Like Rob pointed something out to me, and something happened on the time. I'm trying very hard not to spoil anything.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
it sounds
Just
like
keep
I'm
it
dumb, it's
spoiler
because
free.
I'm being general. So something happens with these characters, and then Rob noticed something in the world, the landscape itself, that looked differently, which was
Right.
pretty crazy that they did that. But I don't know. Jake and I have both beaten it, and I know you're playing right now, and it flows so well. I love the intimate, personal moments between characters just as much as the crazy action car chases through Madagascar. It's the way that they flow into one another and kind of maintain the momentum, even when you're not fighting and you're just kind of driving through this countryside and hearing these two characters talk.
Yeah.
It's such a great way to tell a story in so many different ways, and it's really, the momentum doesn't let up the whole time.
I mean, you know, Naughty Dog are a long way from Crash Bandicoot, and this game, just when you think about it in like a post Last of Us world, they really are just incredible at making stories. And I've only played the first 2 chapters, which I think were maybe an hour and a half, maybe long or something in
Sure.
total. And like, I put the controller down to hop on the bus to come to work, and was just like, God damn it, this is so brilliant. I'm just enjoying every minute of it. Jake, what's been your experience playing it? Where does this sit in terms of the rest of the Uncharted? Like, have you experienced all those other games as well? And does this feel special?
Yeah, so I've played all the Uncharted games, and this one's definitely my favorite. I pretty much agree with what Mike said. I think the way it tells the story has just been so fine-tuned. The way Naughty Dog does it, they've basically perfected at least the sort of storytelling they're trying to go for. How gameplay cutscene, but like there are parts when you can't even tell, which is crazy. I remember like when Uncharted 2 came out, Sony did that promotion, like you can't tell if you're playing a game or watching a movie or whatever. Right. And this actually feels like that. And the one scene in Madagascar that he kind of mentioned a second, we saw at E3, like that's all gameplay.
Right, yeah.
And like, you see it at E3 and you're like, yeah, okay, let's see if it actually is going to look like that. And then you play through it and you're like, oh my God, I am actually controlling this. And it's breathtaking.
I was taken aback because in like the past couple of months I've become a little bit of a PC snob again because I've upgraded my rig and I'm like really enjoying games, whereas like all last year I basically just played games on Xbox One and PlayStation 4. And I gotta say, when I was about maybe 5 minutes into this game when my PlayStation 4 sounded like it was about to take off, which didn't matter because I had the volume up pretty high. But there are times I'm playing this game, I'm like, man, this is running on a goddamn PlayStation 4. Like, there's something about Naughty Dog. They've always managed to like crank the most out of the PlayStation. I don't know what it is. It looks incredible.
Yeah, it's weird.
It runs incredible.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Frame rate, animation, the vistas themselves. It's not like they're doing one of them really well, like so many other games does. Like across the board, it just looks tremendous.
Yeah, I mean, the 30 frames in campaign, the 60 in multiplayer, both like I don't think I saw a stutter the entire campaign. Of the bunch of hours I put into multiplayer, I didn't see any problems. The way that they actually, like Rob Handler, well, a bunch of us have been using the photo mode in the game,
right? Yeah.
Which it's telling of how a game looks that you actually are encouraged to, you want to use that. Otherwise, what would be just like a bonus aspect.
Didn't they put that in Left Behind? Wasn't it in the
right?
Or
it was in
expansion?
Yeah,
when
it came to PS4, they brought it. It was on The Last of Us and Left Behind.
Right.
Yeah, and we've been taking photos, and there are a couple. There's one Rob got of this old hallway, and at the end there's this window open and it's shining a light on these puddles, this dilapidated place, and it looks photorealistic. It's crazy, like how the lighting plays off of certain areas and how, like especially in the cutscenes, the characters' faces just, it's the way like there's one scene Jake and I always talk about, and you can read it differently. That's like, it's a very well written story, and you can kind of look at certain characters, what they say and how they mean it. At one point, a character says like, "We've got a lot of ground to cover." And you're kind of thinking, oh, well, they just mean like the geographically. Yeah. But then you kind of start thinking about it. They're like, oh, or they could just like be sort of on the way to, it's like they're talking about their relationship, kind of like there's a bunch of different dynamics going on. And the way that the facial animations and how it looks during the cutscenes in and out, that they actually just kind of push that story without even using words. It's insane.
Yeah. I guess I have a very selfish question. How long is it? Because I've been only playing a couple of hours, but I already know that I don't want this to end. So what are we clocking in?
Took me, I think my total save time was like 13:45. About 14 hours or so, yeah.
What about yourself, Jake?
Mine was probably about the same. I think maybe 12 hours. I did it in 2 sittings.
Whoa. Yeah. I mean, you got to, all that time playing The Witcher, you just got to cram it in there somewhere.
Yeah, you have to
complete The Witcher 3 again. Yeah.
But yeah, I think mine was probably about 12, 13 maybe.
The first third of the game, so there are 22 chapters and then a fairly lengthy epilogue.
Right.
The first third of the game is kind of slow, and it's a good slow in its pacing, but then that's when it feels like an Uncharted game. And then after that, and I see like Peter Brown sat down one sitting, got to chapter 11.
Right.
Like, in chapters is halfway, but it starts to get a little longer because another thing that this game does differently is structurally, it opens up a lot of its level design. Well, we saw the Jeep sort of stuff they showed a couple of weeks ago. I think there are about 3 areas where it's really open and you're driving through and exploring, and then there are these, it's almost like Metal Gear Solid 5. Not as like directly focused on stealth and combat as Metal Gear Solid 5.
But base invasion-y.
Right, there are these outposts. You can sneak into tall grass, climb on ledges, mark people, and then you can even just go through. You can avoid them. You don't even have to engage in combat, and which feeds more into this story, because the story is very much of Drake kind of coming to grips with the fact that he's not a good person in the first 3 games.
Yeah.
And they address that.
Really?
That's my favorite. It's
okay, because that's been the elephant in the room forever with those games, because they crafted these incredibly believable characters, but still have them in a place where they're mowing down hundreds of people.
I mean, you're still fighting this game. You will kill people at certain points. It's a third-person shooter, but the gameplay itself, not only, that's what's crazy about it. Like Josh Scherer and Neil Druckmann, who wrote this, have somehow found a way to address the problems of the first 3 games of this writing, whether you think they're problems or not, which I always, when I returned to the collection last year, it felt weirder. Like, they have such a sense of humor, and they kind of, after they killed a bunch of people, but now they actually kind of address Drake's psyche, and that this is how he uses his humor as a shield. This is how, like, he's grew up.
Oh, man.
He's been a loner most of his life, and that's why he doesn't open up well. And a lot of it hit home for me, and maybe for you. I know this is such a stretch, but I remember when Roger Ebert was writing about Martin Scorsese, he would always say his growing up Catholic plays a lot more into the work than it does, and you kind of see that here, and that hit home for me. I grew up Catholic, and you kind of see how that shaped him as a kid.
Oh,
and maybe
totally. Immediately, the first couple of hours was very much
and he gets older and he stops believing in that kind of religion, but now he believes in this the El Dorado exists. So it's him replacing what he used to believe in with these new things, and they kind of addressed how his character has developed the entire series. And the big driving thing is never mind. I'm getting towards spoilers.
Let's
play the game because I want to. And then we're doing We're recording cast, right? Yeah, we're recording a spoiler cast later, and I can't wait to get into, because this is the kind of game where you can, not to sound like a pompous jerk, but you can really analyze the stuff and look at it, look deeper at it, but not just in its writing, in its gameplay and how that factors into it, and how certain characters interact in the game, and how certain visuals look, and how certain shots are framed. It's really, really good.
Awesome.
But at the same time, it's just the pacing is so great that the game is fun as hell. In no way do I want to make it sound like it's just this artistic kind of thing. It's Uncharted. You're gonna blow things up. You got a grappling hook this time around. It makes battles feel really fun. You can sneak past people without fighting if you want. It gives you more choices of how to play. You can explore this time around. It's Uncharted. You're gonna be globe trotting in these really cool places. Yeah, play this game.
Exciting stuff. Play this game. You heard it here first. I'm very fascinated by that idea of solving the BioShock Infinite problem. Or diving into the sort of Spec Ops: The Line type of narrative storytelling as well. That's super fascinating. Thank you both for coming in and talking to us about Uncharted 4: A Thief's End, available now on your PlayStation 4. And that's it. Sorry, PC and Xbox One owners. Maybe this is worth picking up a PS4 though.
Yeah, if you don't have one yet, do it.
All right, that's a show. Thank you so much to everyone who's been watching today on twitch.tv/GameSpot, on GameSpot.com, and of course to all our friends listening wherever you may be on iTunes. Make sure to subscribe and rate that bad boy on there. Of course, we also give the episode in audio on SoundCloud and all these other Stitcher and all those other things. So if whatever your poison of choice is, make sure you can pick it up there. All right, we're done. Thank you so much to everyone in the back for putting it together. Richard Lee on the Steadicam there. Give a little nod, Richard. You having a nod or having a seizure?
He just nodded his actual head.
No, yeah, that's kind of hard on that camera. There you go. Richard Lee, of course, Mary Kish, Eric Tay, and Jean-Luc
Seipke.
Seipke.
Oh, I'm sorry, John.
Seipke. I got it right, yeah? Seipke. Jean-Luc Seipke. Seipke. Everyone, Seipke. Try it. Seipke.
His name's way cooler than mine.
Seipke. Yeah. Mike Mahardy. Mike Mahardy's pretty good. You sound like an extra in The Departed. Mike Mahardy.
Which means I'm going to get shot in the face.
Yeah, probably.
All right, sweet. Speaking of Scorsese and lapsed Catholics.
Yeah, exactly. I sound like a farmer from fucking Donegal.
Yeah.
Danny O'Dwyer.
Well, you say things like chinwag and donkey. What does donkey years mean? You said that earlier in the show. You said the donkey years. I know they're laughing back.
I said the donkey years?
Yes. You heard that?
I heard it.
I made a face because Aaron and I don't think Aaron knew what it was either.
I think I said something else, but it sounded like donkey ears. I said
or donkey ears, but I don't know how that.
Wait, what was the thing you said?
You said Disney Infinity, it was in its donkey years. You said it. I don't think I'm going crazy. I'm
Is there I'm going crazy. Subconscious Irish person in the back, idea. Like a leprechaun who's just throwing these words out. Say chinwag.
Speaking of figuring out people's personalities, maybe you are a farmer at heart.
Yeah, probably. God damn it. All right. Well, that's the show for this week. Make sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next donkey year. Take care.